Here's a rewritten version with smoother pacing, stronger emotional tension, and a more polished storytelling style while keeping the same core plot. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe for more true-to-life stories and powerful relationship lessons. Your support means more than you know. I told myself I was overthinking. That's what people like me do. We explain away our instincts. We take warning signs and turn them into harmless coincidences because believing everything is fine feels easier than facing the possibility that it isn't. Looking back, I wouldn't change what happened. I only wish I had listened to myself sooner. My wife, Emily, and I had been married for 6 years. From the outside, we looked like the perfect couple. We didn't have explosive arguments or dramatic breakups. We were quiet, stable, and predictable, the kind of marriage people assumed was healthy simply because it wasn't chaotic. Emily had a best friend named Jake. They met in college, years before I came into the picture. By the time Emily and I started dating, Jake was already a permanent part of her life. She mentioned him constantly. When we got engaged, he appeared in nearly every photo. At our wedding, he sat just a few rows away from the front. I noticed. I just never questioned it. Jake was the kind of guy everyone trusted instantly. He knew exactly what to say, when to smile, and how to make people comfortable. He never crossed any obvious boundaries. In fact, he was so likable that questioning him made you feel unreasonable. So when Emily told me Jake had lost his apartment and needed a place to stay for a few days, I agreed without hesitation. He just needs somewhere to land while he figures things out, she said casually while washing dishes. For how long? I asked. A week. Maybe less. I nodded. I wish I hadn't. Jake arrived on a Tuesday evening carrying a single suitcase. No boxes. No real plan. Just confidence. He hugged Emily a little longer than I expected before turning to me and offering his hand. Thanks for this, man. I owe you. Something about the way he said it bothered me. I couldn't explain why. The first couple of days seemed normal. Almost too normal. Emily and Jake laughed effortlessly together. They shared inside jokes and old stories that I wasn't part of. I told myself it was natural. They had years of history before I came along. Still, little things began to stand out. Emily stayed up later than usual. Jake stopped acting like a guest. And somehow, they always seemed to find each other. If I walked into the kitchen, they were already there. If I sat in the living room, they'd join me for a moment before drifting off into their own conversation. By Thursday, Emily barely asked about my day anymore. She still talked. Just not to me. Friday night, I couldn't sleep. Emily had gone upstairs early, saying she was exhausted. I stayed downstairs on the couch, flipping through channels while an uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. Around 12:30 a.m., I heard footsteps. Soft. Careful. At first, I assumed Emily was heading to the bathroom. Then I realized the sound wasn't coming from our bedroom. It was coming from the guest room. I sat up. The house was silent except for the distant hum of the refrigerator and the steady ticking of the wall clock. Then I heard someone on the stairs. One step. Then another. A moment later, I heard Emily laugh. Not loudly. Not playfully. Just a quiet, controlled laugh, the kind people use when they don't want anyone else to hear. My chest tightened. I didn't rush upstairs. I didn't confront anyone. Instead, I walked into the kitchen where our security monitor was mounted. Years earlier, after a break-in down the street, we'd installed a few cameras around the house. Hallways. Entryways. Common areas. Nothing invasive. Just enough to feel safe. I told myself I was checking the footage to calm my nerves. Instead, I found exactly what I was afraid of. The hallway camera showed Jake standing outside our bedroom door. He knocked once. The door opened almost immediately. Emily stepped out. Barefoot. She didn't look surprised to see him. She stepped aside, and Jake walked in. The door closed behind them. I stared at the screen. Waiting. Hoping there was some innocent explanation. But all I could see was that closed door. Minutes passed. I don't know how many. At 1:17 a.m., the door opened again. Jake stepped out, adjusting his shirt. Emily followed a few seconds later. They didn't kiss. They didn't touch. She leaned against the doorway and whispered something. Jake nodded. Then he walked back to the guest room. Emily stood there alone for a moment, one hand resting on the frame as if she needed it to steady herself. Then she disappeared toward the bathroom. I turned off the monitor. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there until morning. When Emily came downstairs, she acted completely normal. She kissed my forehead and asked if I wanted coffee. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice didn't crack. 10 minutes later, Jake joined us, joking about the uncomfortable mattress as if nothing had happened. And that's when I realized something worse than betrayal. This wasn't new. This was familiar. Over the next week, I watched more carefully. Emily guarded her phone. Not nervously. Protectively. Jake moved through our home with the comfort of someone who belonged there. Meanwhile, I felt more like a visitor in my own marriage. One evening, I finally asked Emily a question. Have you ever loved him? For a split second, she froze. Then she looked away. That's not a fair question. That was answer enough. The following Sunday, I told Jake it was time to leave. He didn't argue. He didn't seem surprised. He simply packed his suitcase. Emily sat silently and watched. After he left, we sat across from each other at the kitchen table. I didn't plan for this to happen, she said quietly. And somehow, I believed her. That was the hardest part. She hadn't planned it. She had simply allowed it. I asked one final question. How long? She never answered. She didn't have to. That night, I slept in the guest room. 2 weeks later, I moved out. Emily cried when I told her. She promised counseling. She promised honesty. She promised it would never happen again. I listened to every word. Then I said something that surprised even me. I believe you. And I left anyway. Because trust rarely shatters all at once. It fades. Slowly. Quietly. Until one day you realize you're sharing your life with someone who stopped choosing you a long time ago. The last time I saw Emily, she asked if we could still talk. I looked at her for a moment and shook my head. No. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to stay closed. This version is more polished for YouTube narration, with stronger suspense, emotional build-up, and cleaner transitions that help maintain audience retention throughout the story.